Hello, my beautiful humans on the interweb. How are we doing today? I hope you're having a good day out there wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my wee little podcast. Chaotic Good. We are live on Twitch Friday and Sunday mornings. Friday night and Sunday mornings. But we just talk about random things. I like to talk about quantum physics, religion, theories, all sorts of shenanigans, conspiracies, whatever, holistic health, which I guess could be a little theory, conspiracy, pseudoscience kind of vibe, depending how you look at it. But all things may be taboo and woo woo. So, welcome. Today, I wanted to talk about what Christians mean by demons. What the heck is a demon, brother? What is that? Now, I grew up Mormon, very strict military Mormon household. So we were very strict in the religious category. So I do know a bit about the lingo. I have stepped out of that world since, obviously, um, and gone more of the spiritual route. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I love watching true crime on YouTube. Well, there's one main channel that I love on YouTube, and it's the Iwu Crew. Shout out to Iwu Crew. But I love Iwu Crew. But there's always that person in the comments where they're like, oh, this person has some demons in them. And now, if you're into the spiritual world already, you probably already know the answer to this, okay? I'm just talking about some random stuff that I like to talk about, okay? Feel free to chime in. I love to discuss things. But this is my perspective on what demons are from like a non-Christian perspective, okay? To explain it to people who are also there where they're like, shut the hell up about demons. A lot of times you'll see that comment where it's like, oh, he's got demons, and then you'll see the opposite where it's like, oh, stop blaming demons, like he needs to take accountability, blah blah. And neither side is wrong. I stand on the fence. All right. So from my perspective, now I'm not trying to say that this is the right belief. Like I said, I think everything has I think everything has a little bit of truth, so I could be far off too. But in the spiritual sense, demon and like Satan and stuff is just giving like a physical metaphor, form, analogy, or whatever you want to call it, to a spiritual belief so that it becomes more understandable, maybe. I don't know. It does muddy the water for some of us who are kind of literal minded. So a lot of us take that as like, it sounds like you're avoiding accountability because you're placing the blame on this non-real object or whatever, entity, whatever. So when Christians talk about demons, what in the heck are they talking about? Okay, so from a spiritual aspect, if you take someone who has gone through a lot and they haven't dealt with the shadow side of things, and what that means is the shadow side of things of yourself are just the negative talk, the negative ideas, the negative connotations and beliefs that you hold to yourself, A lot of people will go through things. Let's take a military vet, for instance. There's a lot of people who go to combat and have to unalive people, and a lot of them are at such a young age, like 18, 19, 20, very moldable brains still. And it doesn't really hit them until like 25, 26 that they actually took someone's life. Like they understand that, but they don't feel the gravity of that and understand the complexity of it until later on. And then they start having trauma. And that's where some of them will try not to think about that. The gravity of what they feel like they have done is just too much to look at, because that was considered normal in the realm that they're in and they didn't know better. But when you don't know much about the inner language of Christianity, you don't know what coming to God means, you don't know what like reaching out to Jesus means, it all sounds stupid, phony, and woo-woo, and it's just like, God, stop talking, So when they talk about their demons, it's essentially that, things that of yourself that you don't want to face, you can't face, and those demons can manifest into physical things like being abusive, latching on to substances, risky behavior, whatever. Or you can deal with it healthily, and obviously those are not considered much in the way of demons anymore. But a lot of people who end up having demons, it's just the inner self, the shadow self, the things that you try to run away from thinking about with yourself. That's all it is that's what the demons are. They just put it into a physical sense so that it is more understandable. So that's why, like, when you hear, and let's go back to the reference of, coming to Christ, coming to God. When I was younger, I used to hear this stuff and I was like, come on, stop. Just stop it. You're done. So it really confused me because I was like, God, this is so annoying. But when someone talks about coming to God, now, I do want to preface this by saying there are Christians, and there's obviously sectors of the whole Christianity umbrella, right? There's different churches within that. You got the Mormons, Baptists, Methodists. I don't know. I don't freaking know, okay? But something like that. There are some people in these beliefs that do believe they are actual people. In my mind, when I used to hear coming to Jesus, like, talk to Jesus, blah, blah, like, it was like trying to talk to a dead man who could maybe help me out. And then when it was and then when it was, trying to talk to God, pray to God, I'm like trying to talk to Gandalf in the sky. Like, what is this? What are you doing? So it was really confusing to me. Now, I heard this explained years ago in this way, and I saw another video recently that reconfirmed the belief for me. But it was talking about how Jesus and God are a metaphor, and God is everything that is around us. Now, the way it was dictated, the way it was said to me as a kid, the way I thought it was like some guy was like, bzz, and then there was like, let there be light, and that's just how he made the world. That's kind of how it portrayed in my mind. And there is an energy that has created all of this, you and I. That is what God is. And a lot of people do believe that giving power to God and surrendering to God will result in help with things because it's all connected, right? Now, in the spiritual world, God is within you. And they talk about this in the Bible somewhere about, the kingdom of God is within you. And that's essentially going inward and realizing you create your reality. Now, this does tie hand in hand with my series of manifesting that I'm currently working on. So this is kind of perfect to go into this as well, which we'll dive deeper into this concept with it later into other videos. When people say come to God, surrender to God, whatever, it's the fact that there is an external energy and it's connected to us because we are created from it. And if you go inward, you start receiving epiphanies, you start looking at sabotaging behaviors, you start looking at whatever you need to look at that you're running away from, right? And the more you learn to love yourself, the more you work through these things, you end up gaining this perspective that you are a co-creator, if not a creator, of your life. And that God, the universe, is like your assistant kind of thing, creating the life that you want to live. And that's where they talk about, like, in the spiritual world, we'll step into that court real quick. When the spiritual people talk about, you're the creator, the co-creator of your life. It's the fact that you're realizing that you have the ability to control your mind. You can't always control external circumstances, but you control how you view it, right? And we'll go into that deeper. I know that can sound a little crazy, but it's a little too deep to go into this conversation with. But when people talk about coming to God, it's sitting with yourself and going inward and looking at things that you deem wrong, that needs fixing, whatever. And I'll be the first to say that I don't think anybody needs fixing or anything. It's more about learning about yourself and loving yourself. And you come to these terms, and that's where, filled with the love of Jesus is essentially one of those terms that they use in the Christian language. But the way it was explained to me was that you can manifest anything you want. You can create your life. You are the creator of your life. Life isn't happening to you. You can create it. You're creating these things, and circumstances to an extent. Not everything is within your control, but I digress. Let's go on. What happened was this idea, belief got misconstrued within language, and now these groups of people believe that the power is outside of themselves and not within. And from there, that's where you're able to be controlled a little more. And Jesus came down to let us know that we can create and manifest if we choose to, which is why he was against religion and all these things. So he wanted to come down. His mission was to come down and show us the true word of God, which is you can create your reality, which goes into manifesting, right? So when someone has demons, it's just because they have this internal self that they cannot face. And a good example of this is I saw a video on Ewu Crew, and the lady, I think, had like a schizophrenic or some sort of like mental health episode where she accidentally unalived her mother. And this girl who unalived her mother, she literally, like, she was grieving so bad that she really did not want to face what she did. And she was telling the cop all these things, like how she felt. She was grieving. And the cop said, well, you can turn yourself over to Jesus and God. And, for her, what she had done was so unforgivable. She did not want to exist anymore. Like, she could not believe that she did that. And that is where, in a sense as well, people don't believe they're worthy of forgiveness or love or anything like that. So they don't even start going inward to look at their shadows, what's going on internally, to help things externally. That's where, like, a lot of people, they really avoid going to God or turning inward. Not because they're scared necessarily of some guy in the sky, but because they personally cannot face what they have done. And because it's so bad, they truly don't believe that they deserve forgiveness, much like this woman. And it broke my heart seeing that, because I've actually never seen that, where someone doesn't believe they're worthy of love and forgiveness and stuff. And it really did make me sad. And I felt for her. Even I know she unalived her mother, but it really did make me feel a certain way. And it made me understand when people don't want to turn inward and look at themselves because they deem themselves as unworthy, unlovable, whatever it might be. So they refuse to look at themselves. And it's mainly because of what they've done, and they feel like it's not worthy of redemption, love, because they look at it with so much shame, so much whatever. When she finally realized, like, snapped out of it, and I don't know if that's disrespectful, but when she came to this realization that she unalived her mother, she was devastated. You could tell that she was genuinely grieving. Like, she could not believe what she had done. And she said several times that she just wanted to be unalived. Like, she could not keep going with this thing that she had done, And the detective was very kind and was, like, if you give yourself to Jesus, blah, 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 which is, just going inward and learning to love yourself and realizing that, yeah, this sucks. You did do this, but giving yourself the grace and love because somehow it's part of, as crazy as it sounds, the plan, And I know people are going to probably get on me with that. Like, how is it part of the plan that babies have cancer? How is it part of the plan that people are getting murdered? I'm not God. I don't know. But how I do know is life is infinite, and it's part of the cycle, and it serves as a catalyst for something. If you were omnipotent and knew and zoomed out, then you would be able to see it. But we can't, because we are in our own little views, And I do personally believe, this is my personal belief, but I don't think there is technically hell when we die. But when we die, we gain this omnipotent point of view where we get to see ourselves through the eyes of the others that we interacted with. So if the experience was good, then you get to see yourself through people's eyes, and the experiences are good. So that's probably closer to heaven than anything. And give, like, the H-man, how many people did he torture? And, he'd have to live the life through their eyes, through every single person he hurt. Like, that is a lot. And that sounds like hell. So that's just how I see it. I don't know if that's true or not. We won't know till, I don't know, someone comes back and tells us from the dead. But nonetheless, that's what Christians mean by demons, you know, and on the side note, coming to God and everything like that. As I said before, there are Christians who believe this in the less metaphorical sense and the physical sense more because, well, I personally believe that Jesus was a dude who was teaching things, you know, but they make it seem in this mystical, whimsical sense. But if you were to think about it, we are all, you know, sent down from God, this creator that created Jesus and whatever. We were all sent down to, so it's not really much different. And that's exactly what it is realizing that you have the love of Christ and Christ within you. Christ teaches that you can create your life. You can come to God, connect with yourself, and realize that you can create your reality, like manifesting and stuff like that. And I know in the Christian world that's like not a good word, but prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it. You can create your life by focusing on what you want, et cetera, which we'll go into manifesting. If you're into manifesting, watch this shenanigans. I think you will like it. But yeah, I hope this helps someone or interests people on that point of view of what Christians mean by demons. Because I know, like I said, it can sound like lack of accountability, it can get annoying and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all they mean, is that it's just the inner dark side of you. Something dark side. Anyway, like, subscribe, and share. Our next videos are going to be on manifesting and how I'm manifesting my remission and everything like that. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all. Stay sexy.